Alrighty, what's happening, everybody? 10:02 on the fan. It is the Tiki and Tierney Show. As we approach opening day, everybody's jacked up, everybody's ready. And I've got some sobering news for everybody. And this is coming from somebody who's generally an optimist here, Tiki, as you know. Unlike you, Jets hater. I try to find silver linings where I can. And I'm not saying that this season will not be without good moments. But the reality of this, and today's the day to do it, not tomorrow, the pageantry opening day. I'm going to deliver this today because this needs to be said. All right. Both the New York Yankees and the New York Mets are worse entering this year than they were finishing up last year. And last year, neither team was really close to a World Series title. If you're really, the way the Mets got punked by the Padres, the way the Yankees got smoked by the Astros, the gap was obvious. And nobody wants to admit this. We have some problems entering the season.
How can you say that about the Mets? Hold on. I think with the Mets, it matters a lot, mainly because the division feels starting the season much better than it did starting last season. We didn't know what the Phillies. I mean, they spent some money. The Phillies. We didn't know how it would come together. But they proved to be one of the best teams in baseball, the Phillies, despite winning only 87 games. The Braves are going to be one of the best teams in baseball, even though they started poorly last year. So the division that the Mets are in makes it troubling that they may be worse than last year. But I don't know how you look at the Mets and say this is a worse team than what they had last year.
Well, let me ask you this.
Scherzer was banged up.
What did they do to get better? You can, rather than identify who they have, what did they do to get better?
Well, they added the Cy Young winner in Justin Verlander.
Okay, they also lost a guy who's pretty good in DeGrom. I'd rather have Verlander at this point, but still, it's not like DeGrom was a scrub.
No. They also, I think, have another year under Buck. Right now, they lost Edwin Diaz. It does.
No,
it doesn't.
It's not football.
But it does. It doesn't. I hear what you're saying, but it does because Buck has a way of, I think, communicating with guys. It raise their expectation and get them on the right the right mindset to start a season. Statistically and on paper, they probably aren't better than they were last year. But I think that there's something to having the batting champion, to having a guy that can hit 45 home runs, to having a star shortstop, to having I don't know, the consistency and health in the outfield. Hopefully, that's what I'm assuming. I think the Mets have a greater expectation than they did last season, and you have to just trust that they're going to build on that. It's kind of abstract. But I don't see the Mets as worse than how they finished last season.
Well, think about what you just said. The Mets probably have a greater expectation of Met fans for this season than last year, but that doesn't mean that it's coming with justification. Same for the Yankees. Now, I'll tell you concrete, look, what terrifies me about the Mets, closing games is going to be an issue all year, and they just don't have any real protection for Alonso. That's dangerous. And then the Yankees, 60% of their rotation is in shambles, but their closer role is still a little bit suspect. And two guys that we can't stand watching play baseball are still a prominent piece of the puzzle until they're not in Hicks and Donaldson.
But you have Volpe.
That
makes you feel better.
I can't wait to be at the stadium tomorrow. It's going to, listen, I can't wait to see Judge. I can't wait to hear Volpe's name introduced, Garrett Cole. And then obviously with the Mets trotting out their aces. I'm not saying that they're bereft of talent. That's not the point. Both teams are going to be, I think, minimally in the wild card hunt all season. But just do this. If you disagree with my premise, right? And again, when I said to start the show that right now, for me, that the Yankees and the Mets are both worse entering the season than they were a year ago. You can challenge that, and that's obviously what the conversation's about. But if you do challenge that, close your eyes and fast forward 6 months. Do you really see the Yankees getting a 27th out to win a World Series? Do you really see the Mets getting a 27th out to win their first World Series since '86?
Yeah,
I don't.
I find it hard to accept that a team that spent a lot of money, talking about the Mets still, Pete Alonso has really never had protection, and he hit 37 home runs a couple years ago at 40, at 50. He's never had protection, and he still rakes.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons why they're not a World Series team. I don't mean individually.
Yeah.
I mean in terms of having that circular lineup where there's no holes. Vogelback stinks. He stinks.
Yeah, I mean, and it's only a matter of time, hopefully, before he's replaced for Mets fans.
But who's the replacement?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Going into the season,
that will present itself. But I think you can't look at this Mets rotation, and understand the closer situation. You can't look at this Mets rotation with Scherzer and Verlander. I know they got injuries, and Quintana is banged up.
McGill's in the minors. They don't value him.
Right,
I've been telling you last month or so. I don't think he's that
David Peterson
special.
is a good lefty.
Okay.
Right? Carlos Carrasco had a good season last year.
It's also 36.
I understand that. And Ottavino and Robertson can do their jobs in the bullpen. I know he's not Diaz, but I can't accept that this team has no shot. Now, maybe because of the division, I would say they're in a tougher position than they were a year ago. But I can't look at this team and say they have no shot because it just feels like the pieces are in place. They just need a little bit of luck. Now, everybody needs luck. Everybody needs luck, obviously.
True.
In any sport, you got to stay healthy. You got to get the right breaks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think when you have a manager like Buck Showalter, luck tends to go your way most times.
Yeah, but the baseball man, can you stop talking about Buck? It's not Bill Belichick. It's baseball.
But he's a good manager.
He's
and he
a
gets
great
credit.
manager.
And there's a reason that they play the way that they play.
Well, he didn't manage that well against the Padres, did he?
I mean,
I'm not saying that it was really his fault. I'm not.
No.
But a baseball manager, you know this. A baseball manager is only going to elevate you so much. Come on. So the pieces. We both agree. I guess I'm asking. Do we both agree that the way the season ended for both teams was not really an anomaly, that the Padres were clearly better than the Mets and the Astros, once again, clearly better than the Yankees? Fair statement, yes or no?
Yes, but it's to me it's circumstantial, and I can't ignore it.
Okay.
I can't ignore that Scherzer pitched through injury and compromised himself for when it mattered
He
most.
was also hurt the year before with the Dodgers.
True, but I think that there's a way that you manage Max Scherzer and protect him from himself. Again, Buck Showalter doing this so that come October.
Dude, he missed 6 weeks. His arm was fresh. He missed 6 weeks.
Yeah, but he still had the lat issue. You could tell.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
And so Jacob deGrom at the end of the year, I don't know what was going on with him, but he didn't tap into his repertoire. He was just throwing fastballs. And against good teams like the Braves, they're going to mash that. And exactly what happened against the Braves. So I can't look at last season and say that this year they're going to be in a worse spot because I think they now understand how to get to the finish line as opposed to let's just grind it and go full bore from start to finish. By the way, that's what they did. That's why everybody got hurt. Remember this at the beginning of the year? All of their pitchers were hurt. And it was like, dude, what is that injury? Right,
yep.
What is that? And then we talked to Trevor Williams. I forget who we talked to. One of the pitchers. Trevor May. We talked to Trevor May. That's right. And he said, yeah, we were just so excited. We come out and throw too hard. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's shocking because they're professionals and they're veterans. Like, what do you mean you came out and threw too hard to put you on the IL?
Yeah, it's an excuse.
It is an excuse. But I think there was some truth to it.
It's not 9 years old. Come on.
But there was some truth to it.
If you believe it, I don't know if I believe that. Honestly, I don't really, as a baseball fan, I don't buy into that. We came out, we threw too hard. Well, come on, dude.
Well,
what are we talking about here? We came out, we threw too hard.
Didn't we say this about DeGrom? DeGrom came out in spring training.
But he's been doing that for a couple of years. Well, that is true. The DeGrom one, that's a little different.
And
everybody else?
And I mean, May did the same thing. He was on the shelf. He was hurt all year.
We're getting off the beaten path here. I know that it's a layered, nuanced answer, so I appreciate you sliding in the context. I really do. I'm not being facetious.
Matters.
No, it does. But I need a yes or a no. Do you believe that the way the season, I'm going to ask you again, the way the season ended last year for the Mets versus the Padres and against the Astros for the Yankees, that was an outlier? Just give me a yes or a no. Meaning, do you think that the Padres were better than the Mets and that the Astros were better than the Yankees? Just say yes or no.
Obviously, they were.
Okay, so the answer is yes, right? Okay. So if the answer is so clearly yes, and I think every astute baseball fan has to give that answer, what have the Yankees and Mets done to close the gap? That's the problem.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily.
And the Mets lost something.
But what does that mean?
What does it mean?
What does that mean? You made the moves to close the
It
gap?
means you weren't good enough last year. You're even worse this year is what it means.
Well, what if you just play better, right? What if
What if Judge hits 43 home runs instead of 62?
Okay,
then what happens? I mean, think about that. What if McNeil hits 297 instead of 335?
But do you believe that's going to happen? I don't.
Not necessarily,
I think
but
he's going to have a
baseball,
great season.
Susan.
I think Pete Alonso's going to have a great season. I think Francisco Lindor is going to have a good season.
All right, so
I think
do I.
Starling Marte is going to stay healthy all season long.
Hope so.
I think Nimmo's going to come back sooner than people believe, expect.
All right.
I think you have to
But
believe
Nimmo
that
was
at
there
this
a year
point.
ago and they still weren't good enough. Lindor was there and they still weren't good enough.
But they were all they were all banged up. And
Marte was banged up
and
at the
they
end,
won
for sure.
101 games. They were
not
good.
I'm not discrediting the totality of their season.
They were bad in the postseason because their pitching let them down.
No, they were bad because they played a better team. They didn't hit enough and they didn't pitch well enough. Same thing down in Atlanta. You can't refute that. And once again, you can, but I'm not going to buy it. And once again, the Yankees stepped on the field with a team that owns them. And the Yankees got punked and the Yankees weren't ready to win. And I don't know what the Yankees did this offseason outside of the elevation of Volpe. And again, I'm not saying I'm without excitement. I can't wait to get there tomorrow. Both teams, I think, win 90-ish, minimally. I'm talking World Series. Like, that's the goal.
I think you're putting that cart way in front of yourself.
Okay.
And I know you have to because it's the start of the season. It's what you do. You talk about the World Series. But I know this from Met fans. I think Met fans are excited for the season that's about to come. And they're not even thinking World Series. Obviously, you want a World Series.
Sure
but
they are.
But you're not thinking about it.
Yes, they are.
On March 29th.
Yes, they are.
You're not saying we're going to win the World Series this year.
But they're hoping that they do, which means that they're thinking about it.
I think all the calls we got last year from Met fans saying, this was just a great run. Yes, obviously we fell short, and the Braves ended up winning the division. The Phillies ended up becoming the team that represented the National League in the World Series. But it was a great ride. I think Met fans starting this season are saying that exact same thing. The ride is what's important right now. And if we get good enough to win the World Series, then we get good enough to win the World Series. So I know what you're talking about. You're fast-forwarding to October.
Well, I'm just giving you a big picture.
Yes, but you're fast-forwarding to October, and I think there's still so many question marks for really every team. And there's still a ton of excitement around both of these teams, the Mets and the Yankees.
Oh, the last part I definitely agree with. There is a lot of excitement. There's a lot of stars on both diamonds. There's no doubt. A lot of all-stars, a couple of superstars. No question. 877-337-6666. What's going on, everybody? It's the Tiki and Tierney Show. So now that we got the negatives out of the way, we can start the season to have a little fun. Let's go, Yanks. Let's go, Mets. Inside of our Town Fair Tire studio, our friends at Town Fair remind you that you always get the guarantee lowest priced on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Listen, I'll never be a homer. I love these teams. I respect these teams. I respect these. I'm not saying you are. I respect these fan bases too much to come on the air and say something that I don't believe. And to me, the deficiencies were obvious a year ago, and the additions to circumvent or patch up those deficiencies going into the season are not nearly evident enough for me to say it's World Series or bust for each team. That might be a cool mantra. Stevie Cohen said it a couple of years ago when he bought the team. I want to win a World Series in 3 to 5 years. We know the timetable. I know the Yankees have kind of backtracked the last few years. It's not necessarily World Series or bust, but we know how they operate, what their mantra's been our entire childhood since George bought the team in the early 70s. I'm just telling you right now, I don't see a World Series team on either side of the tracks. Don't say it. I don't say it. I just don't. 877-337-6666. All right. Linda's in Long Beach. Get it going. Hopefully I get some resistance. I truly hope so. Linda, what's happening today? How are you?
Good morning and happy baseball season.
All right.
Listen, the Yankees, and I'm a Mets fan, but the Yankees lost. When they lost Carpenter, they lost a lot of home runs, probably game-winning home runs. But I know they're hoping that their third baseman is going to take a step forward and make up for that lost offense.
Yep.
Without a doubt. And sorry about the beeps. I'm driving.
It's all good.
And the Mets, I think that because the umpires didn't do their jobs last year during the playoffs, I think that the pitching about DeGrom, he didn't pitch last year. So to me, that's not a loss anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just not there. I mean, he was getting paid like he was there, but he wasn't there.
Yeah,
And as far as
he was
the
unreliable. You didn't know what you were getting. Like, you were excited that he was on the mound, but you didn't know what you were getting from Jacob deGrom.
But he was not on the mound more than he was on the mound. So as far as I'm concerned, he was unavailable. But as far as the playoffs last year with San Diego, the umpires didn't do their job. They allowed.
Oh, stop!
Let me finish.
What, with the petroleum hanging on Musgrove's? Would you stop?
No, that's not even it.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
After every pitch, they put their hands up, called timeout. They threw the pitches out of their game. Now they used the legalities of what they did, but what they did wasn't right. And I'm not talking Vaseline. I'm not talking glue. I'm not talking Vitatex. I'm talking what they did when they were behind the plate. They can't do that this year. Nobody could do that this year.
But Linda, you're not
the
saying
the
that
rules will change. Yeah, they've changed. Things.
Yeah, but I really hope you're not saying that's not the reason why the Mets didn't win. Please tell me that that's not the main premise.
I don't think
there.
that's what she's saying. I'm just saying
It sounded like a crutch there, T.
Well, I think she's pointing out the obvious. There's things that are about last season that you were allowed to do that you're not allowed to do this year, or you can try to, but you're gonna get penalized for it. So it's going to benefit, in this case, the Mets pitching staff if the Padres try to do stuff like that. So I get what she's saying. I get what she's getting at.
Hoff, you're generally, when you're not playing the role of contrarian, a man of good baseball sensibility. You think I'm off base with this?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I think that you're very on point. It's not, listen, it's going to be a good season. I think they're both going to make the playoffs. That, to me, is not a question. But they are both teams that have a lot of flaws.
Yeah. Okay. 877-337-6666. Tiki and Tierney on the Fan. So, before we dive into the enthusiastic part of the pool with the red, white, and blue bunting tomorrow and everybody lining up in the first and third base lines, and the pageantry of opening day, I hate to be the guy at the Fan. Maybe others have done it. I haven't heard anybody quite this direct about it. But it is my role, it is my responsibility, I believe, today to deliver a very honest assessment of what to expect coming into the season. And until moves are made, now that's the out, that's the trap door, that's the escape hatch. The Mets are going to make moves, and the Yankees are going to make moves. If you notice, I didn't say they can't win the World Series. Right now, these rosters ain't it. It's not it. And I don't think that a bad April for both teams is off the table. I think the first month is going to be really, like we sit here and we say guaranteed wild card. If one or two teams are under 500 or at 500 going into May, wouldn't be surprised. 877-337-6666.